All right. Hello. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Talkin Investing. You're here a little bit late. I apologize for being late. Let's get to the chart up here. You're also here with George.
Invisible.
Invisible George. Hello, George.
Hello, Tom. I'm invisible, but I am here. You know that? I am here.
You're here. We just can't see you.
Okay, we'll be honest. We were thinking about not doing a stream again this Friday since it was another sucky day.
No, that is not true. For the first time in many, many years, we did not do a stream on Friday. So I had a family commitment.
I felt lost, Tom. I'm not going to lie. It's been a long time. I
know, and it's a day I really wanted to talk about what was going on, but we've had plenty go on this week. So there's a ton of stuff to talk about. And we'll see if everybody's optimistic, pessimistic. Are we freaking out yet?
I started a poll, Tom. Will the Feds lower rates next week?
All right. Well, that's good because I got a couple of articles on that.
We are 88% says yes. Midway. I'll let you take it.
Hello, Midway, and thank you for the super chat. Thanks for being a longtime member. BitDeer can reach 100. Midway. This is from Midway. BitDeer can reach 130 exahash with the #1 best fleet efficiency joules per terahash. Can get a big 570 megawatt AI co-location deal and can also do 200 megawatts of its own AI cloud all at the same time. BitDeer now has a huge total power pipeline of 3 gigawatts. BitDeer, thank you, Midway. BitDeer put out their monthly operational report, and I do want to go through it in detail because, you know, I bought some more BitDeer on the dip, and not financial advice. You guys know that. You guys got to do your own due diligence. It's your money. Do what you do. But to me, when we look at the charts later of what these stocks have done this year, I just think none of it's priced into BitDeer yet, or very little of it. So I'm with you on this one, Midway, and I know you were early on this. You were the first one on this, so we will definitely look at that. All right. Meantime,
I'll let you know I listed another property. I figured.
Oh, you did?
I'm going to get more money and put it into crypto.
Converting your retail or your real estate to crypto.
Yep. We decided we're going to sell almost everything.
I can't see how many likes
it's not next week. I thought it was the 20th. The Fed rate decision until October 29th. They're killing me, Smalls. The 29th. Dude, it could get worse, Tom.
We're going to look at what the Fed's doing.
You may need to have an emergency meeting.
Yeah, good luck. Good luck with Jerome Powell. I'll be happy if they do what they're supposed to do.
Dude, that changes everything.
What you want to start with that? You want to just flip right over to that?
Yeah, let's flip right to that. It's really important.
All right, I need to do our normal plea here. If you could please smash the like button. It does help the stream out. We want to get this stream out to people. There's a big opportunity. Our members have already taken advantage of this. And it's like everybody's ignoring this space. They're all getting out when they should be getting in. And, you know, I want to get people over here, and they need to start paying attention to what's going on because I think there's still a lot of room ahead, but we're going to look at that and see what you guys think. And is there going to be a breather in the middle? Are we going to have a downturn? a further downturn in the middle. We did some almost perfect retesting this week, but we did have a very down week for Bitcoin. And you would think we had a down week for the Bitcoin miners because yesterday and today were not good. But you're going to see, even with, and I saved yesterday's big board. Let me find that. This was yesterday. So on Thursday, look at this train wreck. Marathon down 11, Riot down 11.6, Cleanspark down 13.8, IREN down 9, CIFR down 11, TerraWolf down 10, Bitfarms down 18, Hut down 9.5, Hive down 14. I mean, this was a train wreck yesterday. And with all of this, when you look at what happened, almost every single one of these stocks was up fairly decently on the week. So all we were doing on Thursday is giving back what we got, a part of what we got on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And I will tell you, for those of you, if you're looking at your portfolio every day, it did not look good for me personally on Thursday. But you got to keep the perspective of, okay, you know, this puts me back to Tuesday. So this is a very volatile space, and we got to be willing to live with the ups and downs. And it's not always just going to be up in a straight line. And when your portfolio hits a new all-time high, it's not going to just keep going to new all-time highs. We're going to get these bumps in the road. I bought a couple of things on this bump in the road because to me, there was a nice buying opportunity. There's only a few things left I want to buy. So, and my cost basis is such, and my positions are so full that there's only a few things left, but BitDR was one of them. And that was my last position that I opened. So I'm still adding to that. I personally don't think that run has even started. So that's my personal opinion. Is the Fed going to lower rates next week? 89% say yes. 11% say no. Guess what the Fed futures say? I'll let you guys go for another minute, and
yes.
I'll show you. I was pretty shocked at what the Fed futures, what the futures say about what the Fed's going to do. Midway, thank you very much again. And thanks for the super chat. Thanks for being a longtime member. And Midway says, ETH quietly has been holding up better than Bitcoin the last several days. I started a new small position in ETH treasury company, SBET. It's run by an experienced BlackRock guy who helped get the Bitcoin ETFs approved. So that's an interesting way to play that one. You're not going to play the ETH. You're going to play SBET, which is, I think, the second largest holder of Ethereum as a treasury company. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I remember. And all of the treasury companies, whether they're treasuring Bitcoin or Ethereum or XRP or BNB or Solana, there's a bunch of them out there. They're all trading at their lowest levels of what's called MNAV, which is basically their market cap versus their cryptocurrency that they're treasuring. So some of them have actually dipped a tiny little bit under 1, which means they're now trading at a discount. So this might be, a golden opportunity to buy into those. I don't own any of those. I just don't. I got out. It worked out for me. But thank you, Midway, and yes, there's more than one way to play ETH. So we had Thursday, which is this nightmare you're looking at right here. And then if you go to today's big board, I mean, it was not a great day. We did have Riot. Somebody tell me why Riot was up 2.5% on a day where Bitcoin was down 1.5% on the day. It did rally. You can see the trend was up for most of the day, so it bounced around a little bit. This 107, I don't love this. On the 15-minute, this ultimate line of support is, we're getting dangerously close to that starting to look like resistance. Now, on the 15-minute time frame, I'm not drawing too many conclusions. But if we look at this on the 4-hour and then the 1 day, we don't want to bump into this as resistance. That would be unfortunate. And I don't think we will, but only time will tell. I didn't think we were going to get down to 104,000. I thought this line at 107,000 was going to hold. I did think we would get to this. I thought we would get no further, but we did. We got $3,000 further down than that, more, 3,500 at the low. So we're, one of our debates has been, are we going to retest 100? Are we going to go below 100? And the last couple of polls we did, everybody thought we were not ever going below 100 again. But my guess is if we do that poll today, we're going to be losing some confidence given the fact that we got down to, this candle got down to 103,000, let's see, 103,516. So that's getting real close to 100. I don't think there's any way we can sit here and be shocked if even over the weekend, right, with smaller volume, somebody could push this down to 100. So I still think we're set up, despite the fact that right now every article I'm reading is gloom and doom. And usually that's very encouraging news, in my opinion. And I don't see the setup the way other people are looking at it. So we're going to look at some of the FUD, and we're going to look at some of the flip side, that because I do think I think this is a momentary pause in what has been an extended bull market that, if you're a traditionalist and you think the 4-year cycle's holding up, then we're basically coming into that October, November, December part where Bitcoin has its blow off top. If you're like me, I think we're going to have an extended cycle. So I think we're just going to have a nice move up in the fourth quarter, and we're going to keep moving up in 2026. That's my opinion. There's just too much momentum, and there's a lot. We will look at a lot of the adoption. It's the mass adoption of Bitcoin, stable coins, cryptocurrency. We've passed the tipping point. So I don't think it's reasonable to think we're going to have a crypto winter and be down 60, 70, 80, 85%. I don't think we're ever going to see that again. And I have one word as to why I think that will never happen again. And it's BlackRock. BlackRock has, almost $100 billion in their Bitcoin ETF. It's their most profitable ETF. And it's the fastest growing ETF in the history of the world. And I just don't think that BlackRock is going to sit back and relax and let, their most popular ETF crash by 80%. I think that's unrealistic. They have enough of their own buying power to put some type of floor in. That doesn't mean there won't be a bear market, right? I think that starts to become a little more normal behavior. We start to live in bull and bear markets a little more under the definition of the way we describe them in the equity markets, right? A 20 or 30% pullback. We get those in the equity markets. We don't get 80% pullbacks in the equity markets. 50's a disaster. All right, let's go look at what the Fed's doing. Article, and then I want to go to the futures. Right tab. Got a crazy story coming up too.
Ricky, as Tommy's doing that, I've just been playing options. That's all I'm going to do for now on. I got a good little plan that I'm staying with.
Well, it worked for you this week.
It's crazy when you think about it. I mean, if you can make more than you pay yourself, it's worth it, you know?
It's higher risk. We always talk about, if you're going to trade options, crawl before you walk before you run, and there's a learning curve. They're highly volatile, but on the flip side, if you know how to use them, you can really quantify what you're willing to put at risk, and you can get much higher returns if you pick the right one. So there's a bunch of different ways to do that.
I just love covered calls because you know your risk going in.
Yeah, covered calls are, the only way you're kicking yourself on a covered call is if you sell a covered call, within a day or two or a week before, all of a sudden the stock, some of these Bitcoin mining stocks, they move fast. They can move 50% in a week or more than 100% in a month. So, it doesn't seem like any of them are on the verge of that. Most of them are very much more so in the overbought territory right now. So this, from that standpoint, it's a pretty good time to buy or sell covered calls but you never know. Momentum is its own funny thing. So I can't find this article. I'll just skip to the finish line here because
I just read about the delay for the ETFs for XRP.
because of the shutdown.
Yep. They were supposed to give an answer until like the 18th through the 25th, so next week. That's probably why there's really a shutdown.
I see a lot of people. I sympathize with you guys. Dave said, I'm down 55K in 2 days. I just saw Larry say, Dave, I was down 63,000 in 1 day. The only thing I can say is, what were you the 3 days before that? It's important to, and not that it doesn't sting. Trust me, it stings looking at your portfolio when you're down a significant number. But if you don't have to zoom out to 30,000 feet, just zoom out 1 week, and in all likelihood, you're still up on the week. So, it stinks to take a step backwards, but I wouldn't lose your cool over it. In my opinion, this is now, if that was the top, and who knows, right? Obviously, maybe that was the top and that's it. And it's down from here. I don't see that at all. We'll vote on that. But if that's the case, then now as your portfolio goes down, you are losing potential because at some point you're going to sell these things.
I mean, looking back, I wish I would have sold my CleanSpark.
Versus just selling the covered calls?
Yeah. But actually, if you think about it, I didn't really lose anything.
You didn't lose anything, and you made that. The money you sold on those. So what George did is he sold covered calls. CleanSpark, I don't want to say crashed, but all these had a really bad day. So he was able to buy back those covered calls for 25 cents on the dollar. So in just a couple of days, he made, 75% of the total potential or whatever it was. It might have been 65%. I don't know. So, that's some of the ways you can capitalize, and then you can rinse and repeat. You can do that again with the same stock by not selling the stock. Every time you do this up and down, you can get the same result. So there's, there's no guarantees. Thank you, Kokani John, for the super chat. Much appreciated. Thanks for joining us on the stream, and thanks for the super chat. Appreciate it.
So, look at this though, Tom. There's a cover call for November 14th. CleanSpark's $19.70, right? Right
It
now
closed
they're
at
trading it.
after hours. I'm just looking up the closing.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and the bid ask, it was $2.22. So that's more than, you see what I mean? So if you add that, that's $2.50 in the positive.
Right, because you got
right?
Your money.
Right.
Plus you still have your stock. Plus you can do it again in a week, probably.
I almost did that today. I almost get
in my opinion, we're going to see days for as bad. I'll go back to, for every one of these days we've had days that were the exact opposite of it. Every single thing was green, and most of them were double digits. We've had multiple. This is reminiscent of 2021. The 2025, the last 4 months has been one of the great runs for Bitcoin miners in the history of time. And it's one of the reasons I think we called this live stream, all my whole portfolio is AI companies, because that's the reality of what's happening. This isn't even the Bitcoin run that we're getting right now. These outstanding gains we're getting, I believe, is really mostly due to the shift to AI. And we're super early on the AI shift. We haven't even hit our run-ups in the Bitcoin miners from the Bitcoin final push, in my opinion. So lots of catalysts ahead, I think, for these stocks after what's already been a very good year. And we'll look at week to date, month to date, year to date, and all that kind of stuff in a few minutes, because it's good news. And it was 100 days in, and that's what it took. About the first 100 days of 2025 were awful. They were bad. So every single Bitcoin miner was in the red. Most of them were down 40 or 50% in the first 100 days of the year, but we're in the complete reverse of that. Almost every Bitcoin miner stock is at least up 100% or more. So
John, John said he sold all his Bitcoin last Monday at 125. Are you going to get back in, or are you just out for a little while?
Yeah, it's got to be awfully tempting to start dollar cost averaging back in, unless you think it's going a lot lower. I'd like to see your thoughts on that one, because you sure got out at the right time.
The only time I have problems is at $82,000. That's when I have problems. But I was actually thinking that to move it down to in the 70s. But you know what I mean?
Let me see if I can find the other. That's a couple of FUD articles, one of which talks.
So my all-time high, I was up 346% last week, and now I'm back to 274%.
Yeah, I mean, boo-hoo.
I know. That's just stocks, though. That's not, crypto.
I think I'm not so good at the technology. I can't find that article either. So, but I got 20 more that I do want to get to, but I want to go to the Fed futures, because here we are. Is the Fed going to lower rates? And by next week, it's a little more than a week, but in the next meeting here that's coming up. So 84% are saying yes. 16% are saying no. Guess what the futures are pricing in? You got a guess, George?
I didn't put. I thought it'd be like 90%.
How do you like 100%?
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. There you go. Okay.
99% that it's a 25 basis point rate cut and 1% chance that it's a 50 basis point rate cut. The futures are pricing in a 100% chance of a rate cut in this meeting. But wait, there's more. And this is the part that shocked me. The futures are pricing in a 100% chance of 2 rate cuts. One in each of the next 2 meetings. 100% chance. I've not seen this. We've never been close to this. So the government's shut down. We're not getting any data. The Fed could, use all that as a cop-out to say, we don't know what's going on. We're just going to tread water. And, the way Jerome Powell goes, it almost feels like that would be his move. But the market doesn't think that, and the market is very, very rarely wrong. This Fed watch tool is extremely accurate. So now the second 25 basis points, we have a long time between now and then, so that could change. But I mean, right now there's 100% chance built in of the first rate cut and 100% chance built in for the second rate cut. So 2 more rate cuts this year. That's where it stands as we sit here today on October 17th. So that is surprising. That's the best it's looked in a long time. So I guess for whatever reason, some of the doubt is coming out of the market. Somebody talking about Bitfarms, and Bitfarms had some news, which I think was brilliant. And I know it set the stock back in the short term a little bit, but man, as a business, as a company, I think they're out of the woods. They've turned the corner. It's on. We're going to go through Bitfarms press release. We can do that next. But first, if you could smash the like button, we would appreciate it. We're going for 100 likes. 100 likes. We're at 57. It helps the channel. And it's free.
And it's free.
Gambit beer. Tom is not great at funerals. Boo hoo. I would not have the same reaction there. What is the green box on the screen?
I don't know.
That's a good question. Should I get tech support?
No.
Should I try and fix it myself? Because usually that makes things much worse. Is this where the green box is right here? Because it's not on my screen, but I see it over there. I'm doing it. It'll take me 20 seconds. I'm going to get tech support.
Uh-oh.
We got to get rid of the green box. That's an outrage. I'll be right back after these messages. Go, George.
Okay, when he does that, I'll go for another. I'm going to do another poll. Let's take that poll down. Hang on. I got to switch accounts.
Told how to fix it, but it's not.
What'd be a good poll to do, Tom?
Oh, you want to do the poll next?
Yeah.
Are we going under 100?
Okay, easy one.
Holy cow. Might have to live with the green box.
Let's see. I would say before the end of the year.
Now I did it. Sorry, guys, I'll stop paying attention to this. I have failed. I was given instructions and I followed them and they didn't work. Midway saying the green box is a sign that next week will be a big green week. Yes, exactly. Go green. And it's been a green month. All right, let's get back to it. We were going to talk about Bitfarms. I want to talk about there was some money. There was some money getting raised this week. So 3 companies raised money this week, and not a little bit. 3 of the biggest money raises, of all time. A lot of it was either structured debt or convertible debt. No at the market offerings. So that's always good. I know we all hate at the market offerings. So let's see. I want to show you what Bitfarms did. Bitfarms pricing of upsized $500 million of convertible senior notes. Now, this was going to be a $300 million raise, but as is so often the case, there's so much interest in these that virtually every time a Bitcoin miner does one of these convertible notes, they upsize it from whatever the original dollar amount it was because demand is so big for it. So remember, they just started drawing down on a $300 million line of credit to build out their infrastructure for AI. This is now another $500 million on top of that. So to put it in perspective, that's $800 million. That's more than their market cap was 60 days ago. So they did this on the exact right day, right? It would be nice if none of our companies ever had to borrow money or dilute or do anything. But when you raise convertible debt on the day your stock hits a 4-year high, the day, and it would have kept going. The only reason it stopped there is because of this. So, and it had reached basically a 10x in a 5-month period from 68 cents to well over $6. Right? These things are convertible at $6.86. So that's 10 times what they were trading for 5 months ago. They were trading for 68 cents. Now they're doing convertible debt, and there's so much demand for it at $6.86 that they had to upsize it. So Bitfarms went from they were in disarray. They swapped out their CEO. Something wasn't right there, but the existing CEO is friend of the channel. We've interviewed him, and it's Ben Gagnon, and I think he's a super smart guy. Is he in over his head? Is he too young? A lot of people were asking those questions. Is he even the one making decisions? I don't know what any of the answers are to those questions. I know this. Bitfarms has made a series of very good moves, and somebody has noticed because their amount of daily trading volume is now 10 times what it was a month ago. 10 times. You don't see that. So this went from off of everybody's radar and fading into oblivion to the stock that's on fire. And it's all AI. they got to 17 exahash of Bitcoin mining. They're a good Bitcoin miner. They're keeping that 17 exahash. They're efficient. They make a nice gross profit from that, but they said, that's it. We're not spending any more money on that. And, you know, when your stock's at 68 cents or 90 cents, you got no ability to get your hands on money. You got to stop. And they did. And they managed to get themselves $300 million of conventional debt in order to get their high performance computing up and running. And once that kicked in, once Riot gave up on the hostile takeover that was never going to happen, we called that on day one on this channel. There was virtually a 0% chance that that was ever going to happen. I don't know. Something else was going on there that I'll never know. In any event, all that's in the rearview mirror. This company's now on fire. They just got their hands on $800 million, and they're going to put it to work on high performance computing. And whereas I will admit, I was late to the party. I happen to be lucky and own all high performance computing stocks, but that's not why I bought them. I bought them as Bitcoin miners. So, and Bitfarms is a big, they stopped putting out monthly operational reports. A lot of these companies have done small intentional things to distance themselves from the Bitcoin mining aspect, because the Bitcoin mining stocks had a very rough year in 2024. So it was clear to some of these companies sooner than others that the future was in AI. And that doesn't mean it's not in Bitcoin. You're multiplying your revenue streams. And for those of you who say, well, you know, I don't know where AI is going, and it might be a bubble, and some companies might win and some companies might lose. What I would say to that is, while all of that is true, the Bitcoin mining companies are the picks and shovels play. If you're familiar, most of you probably with that term, they're the infrastructure. So picks and shovels was during the gold rush. Everybody went out west and tried to strike gold. Well, some people did. Most people didn't. But you know what they all did? They bought a pick and a shovel, because you can't even look for gold without it. So it was the companies selling the picks and the shovels that all got rich. Well, that's these companies. They're selling the power. The power is what is in demand. The power is what there's a massive shortage of. And these have all turned into two reliable forms of revenue. And remember, the revenue that these companies get from mining Bitcoin is significant now. If they can match that with revenue from high performance computing, which has a much higher gross profit margin, these companies, the sky is the limit on these companies. I don't have a cap number where these could go, especially if they do turn into a bubble. So they could go beyond their true market value because of the fact that I think there's an AI bubble that hasn't even started yet that's brewing. NVIDIA's not overpriced, right? They're the biggest company in the world by far now. And which is just shocking to me. This is a $4.46 trillion company. They're trading at a 52 trailing PE of 52. Little on the high end for trailing. Let's see. We can quickly find what analysts think they're going to do. What's their forward PE? I mean, look at, they made $130 billion last year. Analysts are estimating they're going to make $206 billion. This is of net income. This is not revenue. This is not top line. And in 2027, $275 billion. High estimate of $325 billion. So, there's not in a bubble. Your PE might be 600. That's a bubble. 50 for a tech company. And obviously it's less in a forward PE. This bubble has not yet begun. And the Bitcoin mining stocks are all still small. They're a lot bigger than they were a year or 2 or 3 ago when they were almost, they were on the brink of destruction at the bottom of the crypto winter in November and December of 2022. But, all but one of these companies, IREN, is now well over a $10 billion market cap. At one point, they were over $18 billion market cap. They've pulled back quite a bit. George can tell me I told you so because I was going to sell.
I told you, I was saying it.
So I was going to sell covered calls at 1 month out at $95 strike point for $5. That's minting money. And I got greedy and I was a day late and now I'm not doing it.
I yelled at him so much. I said to him, sell them.
It's a lot of money, right? I go to work every day and work all day, and it's for, a tiny, tiny fraction of what I could have just done selling those options. So
I couldn't understand, but I don't know. Hey, it's a long time to go, so you know what I mean? Still a month to go.
Oh, yeah. I think the opportunity could present itself again, and I'm sometimes slow to pull the trigger, I will tell you, especially on selling. So if I had a flaw in my investing life, it's sometimes I'm a little bit too slow to get out.
Take a call.
And it can leave you holding the bag. And this was a perfect example. I could have bought those back today. Here, let's see. Okay, so these were the November 14th at $95. So I could have sold them for $5 2 days ago. The bid ask on this is $1.33 and $1.82. So I probably could have bought them. Even if I said, you know what, I'll just pay the full ask, I would have made $3.18 a share on these, buying them back. So I missed it. That's on me. Now, I'm still glad I hold my IREN stock because let this be the first article that we actually find. Bitcoin miner IREN's AI pivot earns a $100 price target at Cantor Fitzgerald. While shares have done well over the expectation that IREN will entirely focus on its GPU cloud, we continue to believe there is more room to run, said the analyst. Now, I will say, I always tell everybody, these don't run in a straight line. All of them were very overbought right now. And, on our members only, we talked about the fact that, if you're just looking at technicals and looking at the charts, I should probably sell everything. But I'm a long-term investor, so I will take the roller coaster rides. But there was no reason not to sell the covered calls. because I could have sold them 2 days ago, bought them back today, and made the money in the middle. But this is why I didn't sell IREN, because I do think, and I'm going to give credit to one of our members, Sour Melon Gaming, put a price target on IREN maybe 4 or 5 or 6 months ago of $100 when nobody was talking about that, and this stock was trading at stupid low numbers. So now it feels inevitable that it's going to run to 100. So all right, so just to take a look on the 15-minute, did crossed over this 107. I would like to finish the day. I'm going to go to the 1 day. I'd like the daily candle to close above this thing. So if you look, all right, this would be if this daily candle would be totally fine. We went and almost perfectly tested this line at 104,000. And if we run back up and close above this line, and I've been talking about this as a strong line of support. I did not think we were going to lose this line of support. For most of the day today, we were below this. We just popped above this. If we can close above this, here's what I'm saying. I look at things a little bit differently. I'm seeing a daily RSI that went from 72 and it's down to 36, right? So that's cut in half. 50, is equilibrium. So it's now inching towards instead of being overbought, it's inching towards being oversold. This is on the 1 day, and we are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If you can see at the bottom of the screen, these red candles, here, I'll make them bigger. We're 8 days into a bearish crossover. Well, that's usually about the time it takes to run its course. So, if you go back, and it can vary, but you'll see these red candles start turning pink, and that's really when Bitcoin starts moving up. It's not the day you get your bullish crossover. This is the first day that went from red to pink. That was this green day right here. So from there was the big run up. So we could be 1 day away from a pink candle. Maybe we're 3 days away from one. I don't know, but that's how I'm looking at this chart. Based on where the MACD is, based on where the daily RSI is, it just looks to me like we're getting ready for the next run up. Now, the key in the next run up is going to be, how high do we run? Because it would be nice to keep taking out these highs. We have, if I zoom out, you'll see this is not like previous cycles. We have a series of higher highs. January 20th, we hit a new all-time high, $109,000. May 22nd, we hit a new all-time high, $112,000.00. 2 months later, in July, we hit a new all-time high, $123,000. Here, let me make this a little bigger so that. Right, here's July. A month later in August, we hit a new all-time high, $124,500. A couple of months later, October 6th, $126,000. So now I'm looking and saying, okay, somewhere in the middle of November, maybe we get to 130,000, or maybe that's the bigger push to 140 or 150. That's where if you guys remember, sentiment changes very, very quickly. That's where everybody's head was at like 6 days ago. 130 was a given, and everybody was looking for 150 at the end of the year, except for the growing chorus of articles that we were going to hit 200,000 by the end of the year, which is still not out of the question. I don't think we're going to hit 200,000 by the end of the year. I don't know that we'll hit 150, but I sure do think we're going to hit 130 or 140, and very well could hit 150, right? Because this is usually a good quarter for Bitcoin. And we are finally getting, you can see, we've got 2 rate cuts. We just had a rate cut, and the futures are building in 100% chance that we're going to get 2 more. So things are setting up nicely, in my opinion, for Bitcoin. There's a lot of other articles out there that are explaining complicated reasons why we're all in big trouble, and the look out below. But I'm not seeing that.
You know what?
What?
No one, how quickly we forget about the strategic reserve coming.
Exactly. You just reminded me of something we need to talk about, and that's
how quickly we forget that these miners are going to get a big partner in the ownership, whether it's Marathon, CleanSpark, ABTC, Riot, whoever it is. It's going to be a few of them
from
the United
from
States
the government.
Partner. Yeah.
I think this administration made it clear before. I mean, that was a part of the platform, is we're in favor of Bitcoin. We want to be the Bitcoin dominant country in the world. And, this wasn't a campaign promise, but it was a slogan. We want to mine 100% of the Bitcoin in the United States. Now, that's ridiculous. It's unrealistic. It's hyperbole, but it shows the point that, there was no gray area. This was a Bitcoin and Bitcoin miner friendly administration coming in. And I think it's been playing out that way, and I think it will play out that way. And I think you're right. I think there's a really good chance. These guys sit down with the president from time to time. I mean, that's not every CEO gets to do that. So I think all of that good news, all the good news you just talked about is still ahead. Sour Melon Gaming, thank you for the super chat. Thank you for being a member. Cantor said IREN is 75% undervalued. IREN, $100. Yeah, I mean, you got it. You nailed that. You were the first one that I've seen anywhere call $100 for IREN. So from what I've seen on the internet and our stream and our members only stream, that was your call, and it's looking like a very good call right now. Because if you go right, this was up to $74 a couple of days ago. They pulled back. They had some news that caused a little bit of a short-term pullback. But again, when you're doing things, when you're raising money, when your stock's at its all-time high, and it's not just a little bit at its all-time high. IREN in this run since September, when it matched its previous all-time high, it ran up 161% above its previous all-time high. I think there's only one other Bitcoin miner that's even touched their previous all-time high. Most of them are 30 or 40 or 50% away. They need to go up just to get back to where they were. So, this is a great time to do convertible debt when your stock's at $74. When it was at, a few months ago, right? If I go back, if I go back here, it was at $5. This is in April. From $5 to $75. Let me just see. I should have that. IREN closes $1 billion convertible notes. October 14th. So if we go back here to their chart, this green candle right here is October 14th. So after the market closed, they announced this, and over the next Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So you can see like that that's not a coincidence, right? They didn't just come up with this idea a few days ago. They've been waiting for it. They timed it. They timed it right. Again, this one ended up at $1 billion, oversubscribed from 875 million, just like the Bitfarms one. This was oversubscribed. They almost every time they are. The demand for these are 0% coupon. No, and I think Bitfarms was paying like 1.3% on their notes. I mean, it's nothing. It's crazy. These are great deals. And again, when you're looking for, IREN's looking to build as much of a pipeline of power supply as they possibly can so that they can, in my opinion, do two things. For the next 2 years, grow out their AI. They ran from 5 to 50 exahash in a year. They're mining Bitcoin like animals. I wouldn't buy another Bitcoin machine if I was them for a couple of years, and they're not going to. They've already said we're working on our AI. Get your AI up and running so that revenue stream mirrors your Bitcoin revenue stream. You're now 2 years down the road, and just prior to the next halving, you can buy the latest and greatest Bitcoin mining machine that will be much more efficient than the ones that exist if they were to buy them today. And it's why you'll see a lot of these companies got to 40 or 50 or 60 exahash, and they're kind of hanging out there. And I think that's the way it's going to be. So this is $1 billion from IREN. This is October 14th, right? We looked at 500 million from Bitfarms on October 16th, but that's nothing. TeraWulf, October 14th. TeraWulf announces proposed offering of $3.2 billion senior secured notes. This is not convertible debt. These are just senior secured notes. This is straight, good old-fashioned debt. And I want to get to the good part here. Okay. The notes will be fully and unconditionally guaranteed by Wolf Compute's subsidiaries. So they then go on to say, Note 1, substantially all assets of Wolf Compute and guarantors other than certain excluded property. So then there's a Note 2, there's a Note 3. I want to go to Note 4. Prior to the completion of the data center expansion, a pledge by Google of warrants to purchase common stock of TeraWulf. So through FluidStack, this whole thing is backstopped by Google. They just raised $3 billion. You know how much infrastructure they can build for high performance compute with $3 billion? I don't own this stock, but I am very tempted to buy this stock because I think at some point they're going to be, and it's like, you know, there's several of these companies that now are in a position where they're getting 2 gigawatts, 3 gigawatts. They're going to start going past that in infrastructure for high performance computing. It's all going to get used. Now, whether the company's using it succeed or fail or whatever the case may be, in this case, it's Google. Guess what? They're going to succeed. We already know that. That already happened. So there's a lot of big money moving into this space, and these Bitcoin miners have what they want, and they're going to pay for it. They're going to be happy to pay for it. So that's why I feel like there's just a lot of upside. Are there going to be volatility? Right. Definitely. Yesterday, everything was awful. But so let's go take a look at the week. Having said that yesterday was awful, I want to revisit that for those who didn't see it. Right. Today is mostly red. We had a couple that were a little bit green. TeraWulf was up 0.5%. CIFR was up 0.5%. Riot, for whatever reason, was up 2.5%. That was the kind of the outlier today. Yesterday, this was yesterday, for those of you who weren't here when we looked at this earlier. Yesterday was a train wreck. Marathon down 11%, Riot 11.5%, Cleanspark almost 14%, IREN 9%, CIFR 11%, TerraWolf 10%. Bitfarms was down 18%. Remember that one. Yesterday, Bitfarms was down 18%. Today, they were down another 5%. So you would think, man, they must have got killed this week. Well, guess what? Bitfarms up. They're up 19% on the week. So that's why I'm saying, like, for those of you who had days where there was a big, giant red number on your portfolio and it looked like an awful, awful day, if you look at this week, now Bitcoin was down 9%. This was not a good week for Bitcoin. This was one of the worst we've seen in a long time. It was not a good week for Hive. Hive's having a really good year, and they've had a big run recently. So they had a little bit of a pullback. But Bitfarms had 2 disaster days in a row, and they still finished up 19% on the week. BitDR's up 35% on the week. You know, going back to Midway, Midway has been talking about BitDR for I can't tell you how many months. And it's finally BitDR's turn. And I think this is the tip of the iceberg. Right? You might look at this and go, up 35%, I missed it. I'm too late. But I'm going to show you another one where I think you'll probably say, oh, I didn't miss it. It's only just getting going. So this was what happened this week. So to be fair, Riot was down 5% this week. So it was not a good week for Riot. Riot has been lagging and lagging. They're just not getting that AI message out to the world like the rest of these companies are. Cleanspark on a dime pivoted from we are pure Bitcoin miner. We're the only pure play Bitcoin miner. We're never touching AI. They pivoted from that and their stock doubled in a month. They said, oh, we're doing AI. We're in. And boom, their stock doubled. It more than doubled. So I feel like Riot needs to be a little more clear about the fact that they are open to a part of their world being in the AI universe. They got a lot of stuff. They're a diversified company. They're a behemoth. Although by market cap, a lot of these companies are passing them up. They're in 3rd or 4th place by market cap now. That hasn't been true ever. They've either been 1st place or 2nd place behind Riot for, basically since 2017. So CIFR up 11%, HUT up 11%. Marathon was up 5%. Riot was down 5%. And Riot has had a big, big run up. So let's take a look at the month. By the way, this was last week since we weren't on last Friday. So remember I said Hive had a little bit of a pullback? Well, it was up 49% last week. So yes, it gave some of that back. But if you own Hive, if you've owned it for more than a week, you're still way up. Bitfarms was up 40% last week. This week it was up another 19%, even though it got wrecked on Thursday and Friday. Cleanspark up 21% last week. IREN up 18% last week. So last week was a very good week. On another week that Bitcoin has not been doing well. So let's go October. Now 17 days through October. Bitcoin's down 7% on the month. Look at the Bitcoin miners. Every single one of them green. Now, to me, these two are lagging dramatically. Riot up 5%, Marathon up 7%. So in the month of October, that's underperformance. But if you look at all of this, this is absolutely spectacular performance. In a month where Bitcoin is down 7%, every single Bitcoin miner is not just green, like They're running. Some of them are sprinting. Bitfarms is up 78% in the month of October. CIFR's up almost 50%, Hive 42%, BitDR 41%, HUT 39%, et cetera, et cetera. So this is a good month. Now it's not over. We got time left. We'll see. Are we going to give it all back, or are we going to turn this thing around? Let's go year to date. And again, I'll remind you, I won't show you. All right, I'll show you. This was 100 days into the year. Here's how our Bitcoin miners were doing. Red. This is a sea of red. Bitcoin was down 10% on the year. Most of these were down 40, 50. BitDR was down 63%. CIFR. Take a look at CIFR. Take a look at these three. CIFR was down 55%. TerraWolf was down 54%. And Hive was down 51%. These three were getting absolutely destroyed. And you might as well look at Bitfarms down 48. So the best one out of Bitfarms, Hive, Wolf, and CIFR, the best one was down 48%. If we go year to date through October 17th, this turns into this. CIFR up 304%. Remember, that was down 50-something percent. Bitfarms was down 48%. It's up 236%. TerraWolf was down 50-something percent. It's up 146%. Hive was down 50-something percent. It's up exactly 100%. So Riot just under 100 due to the last few days of activity, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of our 10 Bitcoin miners that we're following now are up, have doubled. Some have tripled, some have quadrupled. This is 6x, right? IREN's up 518%, and that's after a big pullback. So that's why I'm saying zoom out a little bit, you know, unless you just bought these stocks in the last few days. If you've had them for a few months, this has been a really good run, and I don't think it's over. Bitcoin going under 100,000 before the end of the year. 71% say no. 29% say yes. So that's still a very optimistic crowd based on the fact that we got, back to the chart.
I was one that said it would go under, by the way.
I was going to ask you, George, what did you vote?
Yep.
So you say we're going to go under. We got down to $103,516. I mean, we darn near, I have a line at just under 100,000, 99,860.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to go much into the 90s, but it's going to go there. It might even go there this weekend.
So it's about 3.5% move down from today's low. Would get us down to 100. I mean, we can't be shocked if that happens.
This is the game. I think you want to scare people, and the best way to scare them now is bring it under 100.
Ethan's saying it's definitely going under 100. Every single technical is screaming. So there you go. I don't think anybody can sit here on a day where we hit 103 and say, I'm going to be stunned if we go under 100. Having said that, I do not think we are going to stay under 100. So if we go to the
I don't even know if it would be 24 hours. I don't even know if it'll be recorded.
Right. I think it'll be like this, a candle wick.
Right.
Right. We had a couple of these big candle wicks to the downside. But look at this.
$100 million bet it's going below 100, Tom.
Somebody did or you did?
No, I did.
Oh,
well,
boy.
I mean, somebody did. Sorry, I forgot we weren't telling people.
Somebody did that. Who was it?
Somebody did that.
I don't see
They
anything.
took their aces and they split them.
Here's the key. Like this line at 107, and maybe we're going to lose this weekend, but that's why this giant candle wick today, the fact that it ran back up to this line of support is meaningful. This has been a strong line. This goes back to July 4th. So if we go under it, then yeah, we're probably going to test this line. Who knows? We could flash crash down to 93. But I don't think we're going to be finishing daily candles down here. Now, if we go to this chart, we did do something significant. This is the 200-day moving average for Bitcoin. You can see we jumped above that in April. We've been above it every single day since April 22nd. We've been above, and Bitcoin spends most of his time above the 200-day moving average. But it did have a little stretch. Oh, here's if I do that. It did have a little stretch here where it was under the 200-day moving average. It had a stretch here where it was under the 200-day moving average. But I'm going to hide all this junk again. Every time we dip under the 200-day moving average. Now, this time you had to wait for it. This was a couple of months. This was right August 2nd till September 20th. That's almost 2 months before we really had. But then what did we have? A giant breakout. So under the 200-day moving average was a massive buying opportunity. Here we worked our way back down under the 200-day moving average again. What happened from the bottom? A massive buying opportunity. So, we can do this every time. Here, back in 2023, in August, we spent pretty much the last, we spent a couple of months here, a month and a half, on just under the 200-day. And you can see we're bouncing into it as resistance. We crossed it, bam. That's not a little move. 175% move to the upside once we crossed back over. From the low to the high on this run, 123%. Not as much on this last one, but still almost 70%. Right? So if I don't know, maybe we got to spend a little time here. We could go sideways. We could retest this, right? We could retest this. But ultimately, any time that we spend below this line ends up being a huge buying opportunity, for years. So until there's a sign that we're no longer in a bull market, and I don't see any sign of that long term, right? There's some short-term technicals that we're looking at that show, a little bit of pressure. But to me, these are buying opportunities. If it gets down to those numbers, I'm just going to buy Bitcoin. I'm not even going to buy the Bitcoin miners. I've got enough of everything. Maybe I'll buy more BitDR if it crashes along with it. But if we get down to 99 or 95 or 90, I was reading an article, talking about getting maybe down to 82. I'm not seeing that. I don't see that. You guys might. I don't. So we'll end this poll. It's a pretty optimistic poll, and I hope you're right, because the flip side of this, if 70% of you are right, then in reality, if this holds above this line of support today and we move up over the weekend, then that was it. That was the low. This was the low. I think there's a 50-50 chance that this was the low right here. But it's certainly, obviously, we're not writing anything in stone. And you've got this down here. We really don't want to go below this at 98,000. So to me, that would be an important line that we would want to hold on the daily time frame. So to me, most of this looks like just good stuff. And Jonas is saying, go all in on Bitfarms. Money, 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 money. I'm already all in on Bitfarms, so it's going to be what it's going to be. And Midway said, Cantor Fitzgerald just put a $50 price target on BitDeer, and you'll see BitDeer today pulled back to $24. So I did buy some BitDeer this week. If there's another pullback, I'll buy some more BitDeer. It's the last one I'm buying. I'm overfilled in all my positions. It's possible if things get wacky and we have a flash crash and I get my hands on some options, I will do that. Why do the minor stocks with high institutional ownership run so slow? The first ones in, the established ones, are also the ones that were hodling, and they're the ones that were lagging behind on getting into the AI space. So there's some correlation between those things. But I think all of these guys are going to have their turn, or the vast majority of them seem to be doing the right things to succeed. So I think there's a lot of potential here. So BitDeer was down. Now BitDeer had in a train wreck day yesterday, BitDeer held its ground. BitDeer was down 0.08%. It was down 2 cents on the day. On a day, everything else was down double digits. So, that was not a buying opportunity. But today, it had a big pullback, 7%. And, that's what Midway's saying. Somewhere around $24, that could be a good entry point. So let's look at... So you can see we had this massive gap up. I don't have this article. Something went wrong. Just a second. Well, anyway, I had an article on what's going on here, but what I will show you, what I do have open, more importantly, I think I actually closed it because I prefer to just look at their press release. Their stock jumped. I think it was 29% maybe in one day when they put out. And here's the thing this is what really gets me. BitDeer actually puts out their weekly production on X. So, the end of the week and the end of the month don't always align, but with a little bit of assumptions, I was talking about they're probably going to mine around 450 Bitcoin. They mined 452 Bitcoin. Now, it could have been 440, it could have been 462, but they gave us most of the math. We got 4 full weeks worth of data. We just had to fill in the 4 or 5 days that were missing on the other sides and to get to the monthly total. So nobody should have been surprised by this. We already knew it. An increase of 20.5% from August due to high average self-mining hash rate. So if we look, they increased their self-mining hash rate to 35 exahash. They are talking about going on track to reach 40 by the end of October. So here you go. They went from small to, now they're right in the neighborhood. I'm going to go to this chart that kind of spells all that out for us. Okay, so this was the month of August. This is the month of September. These are all the reports we're going to get. IREN has announced they will no longer be giving us a monthly update. again, in an effort to distance themselves from Bitcoin mining and focus on high-performance computing. They don't want to put out a monthly Bitcoin operational report. They don't want anybody thinking about Bitcoin right now. If you go to their webpage, the word Bitcoin does not appear on it. You have to hit the investor relations section and go over to investor relations to even know that this company has anything to do with Bitcoin at all. They leaned into the AI, and they did it first. They were first by far. I was frustrated actually to the point where, for a year and a half, they've been saying we're not a Bitcoin mining company. We are experts at building data centers. And, when 100% of your revenue comes from Bitcoin mining, it's a little frustrating to hear that you're not a Bitcoin mining company. But this is what they were trying to tell us. We're better at everybody else than building data centers. We build them cheaper. We build them better. They're more efficient. This is what we do. This is our field of expertise. And that's why their stock's up 500% this year, because the market believed them. And while they did all that, they did run from 5 to 50 exahash in the meantime on the Bitcoin side of things. So, but they're so not interested in Bitcoin, they're just not even going to give us monthly operational updates anymore. We're just going to get quarterly reports. So another one bites the dust. That's now everything in light blue. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 companies that have now stopped giving monthly operational reports. Some of these companies aren't even Bit Digital, BTBT. They have zero to do with Bitcoin anymore. They sold all their Bitcoin miners. They sold all their Bitcoin. They now stake Ethereum. They have, last time I checked, 120,000 Ethereum. So that puts them, I think, in the top 5 corporate holders, treasury companies for Ethereum. And that's what they are now. So there's no reason for them to give a Bitcoin mining report. They sold all their Bitcoin mining equipment. But the point is, you see more and more and more of these. Core Scientific. They're down every month. They go down. They were down 8% last month, 5% this month. Right? They used to mine. I'll go back in time. 180 in the previous month, 187, 226, 247, 256, 291, 314. That was in November. That was a year ago. They were mining 314. And now, this month, they mined half that. Mined exactly half that. And that's just going to dwindle its way down to zero if the Core Scientific deal goes through, because there is now, or the Core Weave deal goes through. There's now some debate about this. And that vote is on October 30th. So that's 13 days from now. There's a group saying that bought up a bunch of stock that's saying this is not a good deal for Core Scientific. They're trying to renegotiate, and Core Scientific came back and said, this is our best and final offer. There is no other offer. So if you think you're negotiating, you're not. Go vote yes or no. But Core Scientific probably should remember that 90% of their customer or more is CoreWeave. So if they give the middle finger to CoreWeave, I'm guessing that's probably not great plans for their business going forward. So I still am going under the assumption that that's going to happen, but there's some controversy about it, and we're going to find out on April 30th. Now, if they don't, I don't know what they're going to do with their fleet of Bitcoin miners. If they go with CoreWeave, CoreWeave's just going to let those cycle out as they become not profitable. And they haven't said this, but they're doing it. So you can see they're mining half of what they were a year ago. And that was all due to the fact that they want to change to 100% AI and become a part of CoreWeave. And that's what CoreWeave does. So old Jock, Tom's been saying he's not going to be buying anything else for the last 6 months, if not longer. You are 100% right to call me out on that. I was done buying at least 6 months ago. But, I mean, they just keep giving me opportunities. I was just talking to somebody I haven't seen in a long time today. I ran into them and, you know, they were complaining that things took as long as it did. And I said, you know what? Honestly, for me, I got to buy so many more shares of everything while things were hanging around. This was like the best thing that could have possibly happened to me. So, but you're right. I mean, 6 months ago, I said I was done. So you guys can believe it when you see it.
Yeah, I was going to see if Edmund was in. Edmund, are you here? Edmund. Ground control to Edmund.
I haven't seen Edmund in quite some time, and I have a feeling I know why.
Yeah. Hey, you think he's going to wait for Microstrategy to come back?
It could be a long wait for the train not coming.
Oh, really?
I don't know. For me to be at that sentiment probably means it's time to buy. Right? Because that's always how it works. But I do know I have this article open, so bear with me.
I think that's everybody's goal, to be rich with a blow off top, Tom.
Yeah, that's why we bought these stocks. That's why we've tortured ourselves. For many of you guys, I know, have been here for 2, 3, 4 more years with us, and you've felt the pain, and now we're getting the reward.
Yeah, he got out of miners. Remember, he didn't. Edmund. There's a great example of retail not understanding what's really going to happen.
And
sorry, Edmund.
And yeah, I mean, nothing against Edmund. Everybody's allowed to have their own. And you know what? I think he made he caught most of the run up on MicroStrategy. So even if that's all he did, he had a huge run up. But I will show you guys, I sold all my MicroStrategy. I think it was April 22nd or April 23rd. And I bought some other stuff with it. And it's changed my portfolio. Bitcoin treasury firms aren't soaking up Bitcoin supply anymore. The slowdown in DAT demand could be a factor in the stall of Bitcoin's bull run. So the angle they're talking about is that maybe, these gigantic buys by all these companies. MicroStrategy, in the last 3 weeks, they bought 196 3 weeks ago. They bought 0 2 weeks ago, and they bought like a couple of hundred this week. They were buying 10,000 a week. 5,000, 6,000, 10,000, 10,000, 4,000. Now they're buying 0, 196. That's falling off a cliff. And why? Because they're trading at such a lower multiple. That stock and all the other ones with it are in a bear market right now. All the treasury companies are at or near their lows since they took off and had giant runs up. So is that the right time to buy? Maybe that's the right time to buy. I mean, if I go to my chart here, MicroStrategy was up 2% today. But it's at $289. I mean, it's under 3. This was at $504. To put in perspective, this was at $542 this year. It's at $289. I sold it at somewhere around $350. So this is actually down since I sold it considerably. Bitmine, that is the world's largest treasury company of Ethereum, down 2% today. Metaplanet, down just a little bit. SBET, SharpLink, down 1.5. Semler Scientific, down 6%. So these are some of the treasury companies. I don't have them all listed right here. So I don't know.
What I'm worried about, by the way, Tom, what I'm worried about is the people in the treasuries right now, by the way. That's the reason why I said it would go below 100.
These folks
Yeah.
right here.
These folks are in it to make bank. And I think that, it's just, this is a hard game to play.
Sour Melon Gaming said, I told Edmund to sell that crap back in April. So hindsight's 2020, but that was not hindsight. You did say that
Yeah,
at the time.
He was a big fan of IREN. We kind of talked him off of being a fan of IREN.
Edmund sold IREN like a year ago.
Yeah.
See, I sold IREN a year ago, and then I bought it back. So I actually got 2 run-ups on IREN. That was a win for me. What IREN has done in the last year and a half is stunning to me. They're one of the most successful companies in the entire stock market.
Question. Out of all the companies that ever existed on the NASDAQ stock, New York Stock Exchange are traded, how many companies do what IREN has done? Like percentage wise?
In this short a period of time?
Yes.
I mean,
within a year or within 6 months?
Small cap high growth stocks can do this. So there's some stocks that are even much smaller than IREN that run at these type of rates. If you're talking about S&P 500 companies, they don't do
S&P.
this. The S&P
so
500.
You'd say this is like winning the lottery.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you happen to, and I'll show you guys what I did. I've showed you all along. I showed you when I did it. And I very rarely make trades. So, usually I'm just dollar cost averaging in. And then when it's time to get out, I get out. But back on April 23rd, I got back to break even on Microstrategy, $349.73. So I sold it. That was my plan. I said, when I can get back, I felt I was going to get back to zero. I said, when I get back to zero, I'm going to sell this and allocate it across some Bitcoin miners. So what did I do? I bought 54% of that money I put in IREN, 42% I put in Hive, and then 3.4% I put in Riot. IREN's up 884% since I did this 177 days ago. So to your point, George, I mean, it's up 884% in the last 177 days. By the way, that's only because it tanked. It was up 1,200% 4 days ago.
So right now is a good time to move back into IREN if you're not in IREN.
Right. It just had a nice little pullback. But by the same token, I mean, MicroStrategy I'm up 585% with that money. I would be down 17% had I just held MicroStrategy, or worse yet, had I been held all my MicroStrategy and been buying the dips. Right. I have a different portfolio because of this one thing. So, but to me, it was clear that the risk was turning on with these treasury companies. There was just too much exposure, direct or more direct exposure. A lot of people were getting onto, places like Coinbase and Robinhood. You could buy Bitcoin with the ETFs, unless you happen to have your money at Vanguard. Everybody could buy Bitcoin just by buying an ETF. So there was too much easy access. These companies' value proposition made a lot less sense to me in a world where you could just directly buy the asset or buy an ETF that's a one-to-one, a spot ETF that's holding the actual asset itself. And I was worried that these were going to come down in price, and they did, all of them. Are they going to bounce back? Are they going to have another heyday? I mean, I don't know. Let's see what you guys think.
My computer's about ready to die, just so you know.
All right, if you disappear, we'll know why.
If I disappear, you won't know.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
I'm just going to leave. I'm not going to add extra to this. Just going to leave the two options.
no one's yelling, Tom, in the chat. No one's screaming at me, telling them I'm an idiot. Can somebody do that, please?
It's not a stream without that. Hey,
I
we're at
know.
101 likes. Thank you, everybody.
Nice. Thanks.
Much appreciated.
Where's the piss and vinegar everybody has?
Especially after a couple of bad days, I thought maybe we would get a little hate thrown at us, but you guys are good people. Are the treasury companies like Microstrategy and BitMine and there's several of these companies now. And I'm not even counting the Bitcoin miners that are hodling, right? I mean, the publicly traded company with the second most amount of Bitcoin on its balance sheet is Marathon. They have 53,000 Bitcoin. I have an article about this, unless it's one of the 50 articles that are not. I have 80 tabs open, and I can't find one of the articles I'm looking for. It's one of those days today.
There we go.
Oh, I want to do.
That's better.
I want to look at this for a minute, just because I'm going to sidetrack myself.
By the way, I didn't say this at the time, and now everybody's ripping on Fred, so I'm going to say this. I guarantee you remember how you said with Jason you didn't know about how that all went down with Bitfarms? I almost feel
Mystifying.
that is a story in itself that we will never know. Oh, there we go.
What? That's because we just lost George. To be continued if George comes back. Yes, I remember Fred Thiel bragging about not getting into high performance computing. Right. So was CleanSpark, but they shifted gears and they had to get rid of their CEO, it would appear, in order to do so. So, they said they had no philosophical or fundamental differences on how to run the business. But the fact is they got rid of their CEO. Matt reclaimed the position of CEO. And the first thing he did is announce, we're all in on AI. And they have a lot of infrastructure already. They have a lot of pipeline ahead. So I think they're going to be in good shape getting into the game. Riot has built out a massive amount. TeraWolf is all in on CIFR. Almost all of these are now, two revenue stream business models, Bitcoin mining and high performance computing, which is all really the same thing. They're energy companies. And this shift happened 3 or 4 years ago. And if you guys, for those of you who were around long enough to remember, this started out, this was a race of who could buy the most Bitcoin mining machines. In 2020 and 2021, you couldn't get your hands on a Bitcoin mining machine. These companies were ordering 50,000 or 100,000 Bitcoin mining machines. They were putting down 50% deposits, sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars, for delivery dates somewhere 6 to 12 months out into the future. Right? That was the bottleneck. Well, that was a fake out. The actual machine itself is now really more of a commodity. It's selling for pennies on the dollar per terahash of what they were selling for 4 years ago. And they're about to get even better than that, because if we're to believe what everyone's saying, the next generation that's going to come out is another big jump in efficiency, joules per terahash. So what all these companies realize is, hey, the problem isn't getting our hands on Bitcoin mining machines. It's where the heck do we plug them in? We need energy. And that revelation, one by one, hit these companies over the last 4 years, and they started building out gigantic energy pipelines. You know, Riot, while a lot of people don't love a lot of what Riot does, and, you know, they're not the most efficient Bitcoin miner, they built 2 gigawatts of their own power plants in Texas. They actually sell energy to the state of Texas when Texas is desperate and is in need of it. So, you know, they made 30 or 40 or 50 million dollars just selling energy, just turning their machines off and just going home and selling the energy to the state of Texas. So there's a lot of AI infrastructure built out in these Bitcoin mining companies, and it's why they're doing so well this year. Are the treasury companies going to run up? So this is a pretty close one right now. If you haven't voted, go ahead and vote. 54% say yes, 56% say yes, 44% say no. So that's a very even split. So I think I have. Okay, so while we're talking about it, Marathon actually bought Bitcoin. So they haven't done this in a little while. They have 53,000 Bitcoin. They mined a lot of that and hodled it, but they also bought a lot of that. They bought more Bitcoin than all the other Bitcoin miners put together, and it's not even close. But it's been a long time since they bought any. Well, they went out the other day and bought 400 Bitcoin for whatever reason. Analysts warn the Bitcoin inability to maintain gains above key resistance levels may lead to a retest of 100,000, which is what we just talked about. Here, Metaplanet trades below 1x MNAV. So this is what I was talking about. For the first time since starting the Bitcoin Treasury Plan. So these companies were trading at, and this is essentially MNAV is a made-up indicator comparing your market cap to the amount of treasury that you have of whatever cryptocurrency. You know, it used to only be Bitcoin mine treasury companies. Now there's Ethereum companies, there's Binance companies, there's XRP companies, there's Solana companies. There's a few coins I've never even heard of that people are hodling. But the big ones are in Ethereum, are mostly in Bitcoin and Ethereum. Metaplanet is treasuring Bitcoin. They are now trading at 1x MNAV. So they're trading at no premium at all. Now, it's hard to raise money when you're not trading at a premium. It's a lot easier to do this convertible debt and just keep rolling it forward and rolling it forward when you're trading at multiples. But in my head, I'm going, why would the treasury company be trading for more than the assets it owns? Because most of these companies, yes, Metaplanet has an underlying company. Its value rounds down to zero. Microstrategy has an underlying company. Its market value rounds down to zero. These companies, while they do have other things going on, what they're about, where 99% of their resources are on buying and holding Bitcoin or whatever coin it is that they happen to be doing. So why would they be trading at twice Bitcoin when Bitcoin is trading at 1 times Bitcoin? It just fundamentally never made sense to me, and it still doesn't make any sense to me. And, you know, I could explain this in a different way, and it'll sound like, wow, this is a money printing machine. Why wouldn't they just do this forever? But for me, if I take a step back, I just go, well, why don't I just buy Bitcoin? Why is their Bitcoin worth twice as much as my Bitcoin? It's not. And this is the phenomenon that happened to Grayscale. Over the course of a few years, the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust went from trading at a big premium to a massive, massive discount. And that's what I was afraid of, that potentially these could end up trading at a discount because they're once removed from the asset. Now, fortunately, they're trading at 0.99x. So call it 1. Right? It's not like these have plummeted and they're at a big discount. Kindly, stock ticker NAKA fell below 1x MNAV, but they're at 0.959, so 96%. Right? These are not catastrophes. If these bounce off of 1x, and a recent Forbes article suggests that 15% of digital asset treasury firms are now trading below 1x, but they're counting this one that's trading at 0.99. Right? To me, that's a rounding error. So it's not a crisis yet. I don't know which way these are going to go. And I guess you guys, well, are the treasury companies going to run up?